Karen is a licensed master of social work, and she is the founder of a nonprofit called A Sister's Legacy. Her nonprofit provides therapy, case management, and community resource connection for people in need. She created this nonprofit in memory of Marissa Carrillo, her sister, who had cerebral palsy and microcephaly. A Sister's Legacy is working to create meaningful and accessible care for people with disabilities and their caregivers so that Marissa's legacy can live on in service to others. Karen, welcome.
Yeah, it just rolls right out of here.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. As she mentioned, my name is Karen. I'm the founder and president of A Sister's Legacy. Making accessible care in honor of Marissa and Carrillo is what we do. We also make jewelry, and that's going to be a real fun thing that we'll do today. But first, I want to take you on a trip down memory lane. Imagine this. It's 2015, and I am finishing up my master's program. I'm working for a nonprofit. I think that everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's mental health, it's therapy, it's all the things. But then reality happens, and it turns out that not everyone in nonprofit is great. Not everyone in nonprofit actually cares about your personal life. And my first experience working in a salaried position, I was told by my coworker who was teaching me how to fill out my timesheet that, well, if you only put 40 hours a week, it looks really bad. So you need to make sure you're working at least 45 hours a week. But I'm salary. Doesn't that mean they're paying me for 40 hours a week? Yeah, but you're supposed to put at least 45. That's what's expected when you work salary. I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm not getting paid for that, so okay, that's very confusing. But all right, the math's not mathing. I'm already only making $30,000 a year, so like 15 an hour. Okay, so that was my first little introduction into the real salaried business world. You know, I then spent some time working in the for-profit world, and I was so excited. I was like, all right, I'm the director. I'm only 23 and I'm running shit, okay? But I was also on call 24/7 for a year and a half, and it drained me as a person. It sucked the life out of me. The moment I realized that it was sucking the life out of me was when I went on a cruise after working for a year and a half. My boyfriend and I, we lived in Sin, we went on a cruise together. And during that cruise, he said, man, this is great. This is the first time we've really hung out in like a year and a half. And I'm thinking, wow, we live together. That's kind of a red flag. I am currently a red flag. So I have had quite the journey in the mental health realm and in the professional world, and it's made me realize that there's more to life than just work. And if you're not taking care of yourself, then you're not going to take care of your clients very well either. So wellness, according to dictionary.com, right, is this quality or state of being healthy in body and mind, especially as the result of deliberate effort. That's what I want to emphasize, because wellness doesn't just happen, right? Like mental health, you know, like, yeah, we're generally kind of born okay, but then life happens, right? A lot of us have adverse childhood experiences. All the things happen and they pile up. And wellness isn't something that you just have. You have to actively work towards it. And so there are 8 different sectors of wellness, right? So we have physical, like running, that I don't do that. You know, spiritual, social, environmental. I'm not going to hit too much on those since we're talking about mental health in the workplace, right? But we also have mental, environmental, financial, and occupational. And these things are not just going to happen. You're not just going to be spiritually well without making effort to do whatever it is that's spiritual for you, right? Is that praying? Is that meditating? Is that just spending time in nature? You're not going to be well at work if you're not making an effort, but also it's twofold. Your employer has to make the effort as well. So it's the responsibility of both the employer and the employee to create a safe space where mental health is the priority. So the employer, how are you encouraging and creating opportunities for your employees to be mentally healthy? It's your responsibility as an employer. If anyone here, like small business owners or anything, raise your hands. Small business owners, maybe? Yeah? Okay. So what are you guys doing to, What are you doing? No, I'm just kidding. What are you doing to ensure that your employees have mental wellness? Are you creating opportunities for them to spend time at work or at home? Like, why are we having 2-hour meetings? Like, it's just gross. Why are we forcing people to come into the office if it's a day that they can work from home? That's one thing that I've seen that I think is very interesting. I think the pandemic taught us that a lot of our jobs don't have to be done in an office space. But I've noticed that a lot of people are trying to force people to come back in the office because we spent hundreds of thousands and maybe millions of dollars on a great office. But like, what is that doing for your employees' well-being? My husband is a perfect example. He is my polar opposite. If he was supposed to come up here and talk on stage, he would just be like, okay, after 4 whiskeys, I will. But like, he's not a social person. And so working in IT, he does his best work from home. But when he has to spend 2 hours a day driving to work, that doesn't do anything for his mental health or his wellness. So employers, it's your responsibility to pay attention to your employees. What does their caseload look like? Because I'll tell you right now, when I was working in dialysis and I had 85 clients that I had to see, I was not mentally okay. Because as a social worker, as a person who deeply cares about the well-being of my clients, how am I supposed to make sure that 85 people are getting a piece of me every month? It's almost impossible. And so paying attention to the client load, it's like, what are your expectations? Because if your bottom dollar and your bottom line is all you care about, that's not the way the world works. We need to continue to open up that conversation of why are we doing what we're doing? So there's a really great book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. And that was a book that I read before starting this nonprofit. And that book really taught me that your why is what sells your product, right? So we think about Apple. Apple's this huge company. We're not really buying Apple products, we're buying the Apple lifestyle of simplicity, like a beauty, of grace, of all the things, the easy, rich lifestyle. That's kind of what people are thinking of when they're purchasing Apple products. They're not like, oh, I need a new phone. It's the branding. And so why are we doing what we're doing? I know that my why is because I want to make accessible care. Because I believe that everyone should have access to mental health services. And I believe that you should not have to sacrifice eating dinner with your family. I don't believe you should have to sacrifice paying your electric bill in order to have mental health services. So that's my why. And as an employee, what are you doing to support your own mental health in the workplace? How are you functioning on a day-to-day basis? Boundaries are something that I've noticed with my clients. So I see clients in therapy on a weekly basis. And I've noticed boundaries and a lack thereof are one of the biggest challenges my clients have. Because if you are going home, I'm going to the office, I'm working until 6:30, and then I go home, and then I'm checking my email, I'm not giving my family their full attention, what am I doing, for my own self? One of the biggest challenges is I have moms, and I love working with mothers because some of them have lost their identity of motherhood because they say, oh, I'm a mom. How many in here are moms? Anyone mom in here? Okay. Being a mom is awesome. It's not my calling, but I love to support others who do it because at the end of the day, your kids are watching you. They're seeing the things that you're doing or not doing, and if you're not taking care of yourself, you're teaching them that it's okay to not care about themselves. My favorite people to come and speak to my interns is in the room right now. Her name's Mackenzie, and she's a dietitian. And I absolutely love Mackenzie speaking to my interns because we talk about the intersectionality of mental health and disordered eating. And she was telling us that her youngest client was 6 years old. Can you imagine a 6-year-old with a disorder, like an eating disorder, right? And then a 10-year-old who says that they think that they're fat. And when we boil it down, why do they think they're fat? Because we're talking to mom, and mom says, oh yeah, I have thunder thighs. Oh, I'm heavy, I'm fat. And everyone says, hey, little girl, you look just like your mom. And so, part of what we're doing here in the workplace, and then we take it home, that affects every bit of our life. So I think it's important to realize, a happy employee makes a happy client. And that's something that's really important to me as I hire people, as I train people. I need to teach people that you have to put yourself first. What do they always tell you when you're in an airplane? If the plane goes down, you have to put your mask on first. And And so that's something that we have to learn to do for ourselves. And it seems very hard. And putting boundaries can cause people to not enjoy it. Sometimes when we put boundaries up, we get resistance because I'm used to being able to access you at 9 o'clock at night. You know, I'm used to you responding to my email within 5 minutes. But the reality is most of these situations aren't life and death. And as employers, you have to be able to understand that your employees should have a personal life because they're going to do so much more for you if they have balance and burnout. I experienced burnout like 3 times at the age of 25, professionally. That's a lot. So completing the stress cycle is very important. So Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle is a book that I highly recommend reading. It talks about stress and what it does to us as a person. But it's important to complete the stress cycle. So way back when, in the plains and the animals and no houses and things, so we would see a tiger, or we would see a lion or a bear, oh my, right? We would see some big animal coming at us, and we'd run back to our village. And our villagers help us. They have spears, and they attack the animal, and they die, and we're all safe. And our stress cycle has been completed, right? So you have the high impact stress, and then you get to come down from your stress. But we don't really have that anymore. We have a lot of like micro things that happen to us throughout the day. Maybe little microaggressions at work. You've got someone you just don't get along with. I had one girl tell me she was gonna fight me in the streets. I was like, that is not happening, ma'am. Just like things happen at work. Yeah, I work in some fun areas, okay? And so we don't always get that release. We get high in our stress cycle, but it never comes back down. So we're just constantly here with our adrenaline, fight, flight, or freeze, or if you're me, fight or fight. But the most efficient way to complete the stress cycle is physical activity. I don't run unless there's like a horror movie killer chasing me. It's just not something I enjoy doing. So there are other ways that you can complete the stress cycle. So one of those ways is breathing. Deep belly breaths is something I'm sure we've all heard by now. But deep, slow breaths can help you regulate stress in 5 out of 10. It's a great way to begin unlocking trauma in your body. And so that's something that I work with my clients. Like, I will literally get a yoga mat and I'll lay on the floor and we'll practice deep breathing. Because if you notice, when you see a baby sleeping, their stomach expands when they breathe. You know, it's just so pure and beautiful. But as we get older, we start keeping our stress in our body, and our breaths are a lot more shallow in our chest rather than deep belly breaths. So breathing is something that can help you regulate stress. Positive social interaction is a great way to help regulate stress. Compliment someone. Call a friend. People tend to be happier if they've had polite, casual chats. Laughter. And have a good laugh. Not the cute, like, oh, haha. No, the deep belly, like, can't breathe, tears in your eyes, just really impolite laughter. These are things that can help release that stress from your body. Affection. A warm, welcome hug can make you feel safe in your own body again. Those of us who've experienced physical or sexual trauma, we have a really hard time feeling safe in our own body. So having people in your life who you can just hug. You know, another way, John Gottman is like the marriage guru guy, and one of his suggestions is the 6-second kiss, which I told my husband, and so now we do a 6-second kiss like every day, because he's like, I'm gonna touch your butt, I'll do it. Anyways, but the 6-second kiss is important, because 6 seconds is a long time to kiss someone you don't like. It tells your body that you're safe. Or the 20-second hug. But it's a centered hug, not leaning all your weight on them, but meeting someone 20 seconds. Again, a long time to touch someone you don't like. So it tells your body and your brain that you're safe here and that you can release the stress. Big ugly cry. Those are important. I've noticed I have a lot of people that walk in my office for their first therapy session who make eye contact with me and just start bawling. And it can be overwhelming, but also it can kind of be a beautiful thing because they're like, I did not realize how much I was holding in. But walking in here, I now feel safe. And that's all I've ever wanted, is to create a space where people feel like they can fully be themselves. But sometimes you just need a big ugly cry. You don't have to be strong for everyone. Even though that's kind of something that we've been programmed into our brain. If you watched Encanto, the older sister who has to be strong for everyone, that was always me. You know, I grew up with a sister with disabilities. So nonverbal, wheelchair, diaper, feeding tube. I'm practically a street nurse at this point, okay? I've done wound care. She had a PICC line to her heart. And I was always the strong one. You know, I'm the oldest. I have to hold it together for everyone else. Because guess what? You know, when you're 15, your mom's going to the mental hospital, dealing with all the things. And you think, oh, you have to be the strong one. Guess what? Sometimes you pick up the currency that you need. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And creativity, which is my favorite. So if you would have asked me 2 years ago when I started this nonprofit if I would be making jewelry, I would have been like, what are you talking about? That was never in the plan. I didn't set out to be a jewelry maker. That was not a goal at any point of my life. But it just happened, and here we are. And it's supporting the nonprofit, but it allows me to have that outlet. Mental health is, everyone has it. It can be poor or it can be good. We all have it. But it's kind of what you choose to do with the situations that life hands you. That's important. We're going to do the videos later. But, videos. My big takeaway from today is I want you to be aware. I want you to be aware of your coworkers. I want you to be aware of your employees. I want you to be aware of yourself, because at the end of the day, what you do matters. Every single one of us has people in our lives that we impact. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we really can't be the best for other people either. And you don't have to save everybody. That's been a really hard thing for me to understand, because when I go and I see a client, they come in my office and they tell me about the things, or they tell me about the abuse and the trauma. I have to understand that I cannot carry their weight for them. I can't make their decisions for them, but I can be somewhere where people feel safe, where people know that they can find answers. And I think it's really important that we are all able to be a safe place for others, but also for ourselves. Eyes and earrings are a good time, so we'll do that here shortly. I'm a social worker, I'm an artist, I'm an advocate, and I hope that you all enjoy learning a little bit about mental health in the workplace, and creativity is something that we're going to do today, being creative, and we have the opportunity to make jewelry. I've had so many people who've done this activity who've been like, I'm not creative. And funny joke, you are, we're all creative. Just because something doesn't look like what you imagine in your brain doesn't mean it's not awesome. And just because it doesn't look like something I made or some other artist has made doesn't mean it's